Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. The Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary, Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Plenary. Programme signed. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly.
Please take your seats. Members, before we commence business today, I would want to record the fact that I had written to all members on Friday with an update on discussions on the management of Assembly business during the current COVID-19 restrictions. Last year, members will be aware that the Assembly made very significant changes to how we did business, and it is right and proper that we again respond in these current serious circumstances. While it is welcome that the figures do show an improving picture, we all know from experience at this point that we cannot be complacent in dealing with this virus and the emergence of new variants. Given the role and the functions of this Assembly, it is crucial that we have remained able to carry out our responsibilities, but clearly the business that we do and how we do it cannot be in a normal way. I do want to acknowledge the cooperation I have had from all party whips, the Business Committee and the Assembly Commission in dealing with these issues. While we may have to take decisions to introduce changes, which I understand are far removed from how individual parties or members would ordinarily wish to conduct business, we are dealing with extraordinary challenges which require us to move beyond our normal preferences. This is not unreasonable given the nature of the changes that we have required to many aspects of daily life for our whole community, or indeed the exceptional efforts being made by key workers and particularly our health social care staff, whom we cannot praise highly enough. The cooperation and the understanding of all members will make it significantly easier, particularly for officials, as we adapt in the weeks ahead, so I would ask all members to keep in mind why changes are being made. Finally, we are at the end of the first full year since the return of this Assembly. It has been an exceptionally busy year, dealing with issues that we could not have envisaged last January. And that is particularly the case for the staff of this House. And I want to again acknowledge their efforts and their commitment, as was demonstrated by the fact that the year ended with them being recalled from leave on a number of occasions over the Christmas period. When we have to be here in the building to do business, it also does require many staff to be here rather than working from home. I'm not sure that all members, and most people certainly, are fully aware or as conscious of that as they might be over recent weeks. So I would ask members to be especially mindful of the support that they are being given at this time from the staff of this House. And as I move on to the order paper, I have received notification from the First and Deputy First Minister that Ms Carroll has resigned the Office of Minister for Communities, effective from the 15th of December 2020. I have also been informed by the nominating officer for Sinn Féin that Ms Gerry has been nominated as Minister for Communities. Ms Hargey accepted the nomination and affirmed the pledge of office in the presence of the Speaker and the Clerk Chief Executive on Wednesday, the 16th of December 2020. I am satisfied that the requirements of the standing orders have been met. Moving on to matters of the day. Mr Gerry Carroll has been given leave to make a statement on the destruction of the Belfast Multicultural Association building, which fulfils the criteria set out in Standing Order 24. If other members wish to be called, they should do so by rising in their places and continuing to do so. All members called will have up to 3 minutes to speak on the subject, and I would remind members that I will not take any points of order on this or any other matter until the item of business has finished. I call Mr Carroll.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, last weekend we witnessed the harrowing scenes of a building that in many ways represents the new Belfast, the new multicultural and diverse Belfast and society that we want to see set alight. Members of the Belfast Multicultural Association, who were just last week collecting food to assist the local community in the middle of a pandemic, had their building that they carry their work out on destroyed and set alight. And if this attack was carried out at any other time, any different time, we could be talking about tragedy, death and lives lost. Therefore, we need to send a resolute message to those people who engage in this hate-filled attack. You're the minority and you will not win. We have to send a clear message of solidarity and support to those people who volunteer in and who use the BMCA, that we stand with you and we will do everything that we can to support you at this time. I want to also, Mr Speaker, commend the BMCA and all those who offered solidarity in the aftermath of this attack. People like Patrick Corrigan and Amnesty International, who set up an online fundraising drive which raised, I think, over £50,000 so far, and everybody who quickly donated over the weekend in a sign of solidarity. Mr. Speaker, we have to recognise and understand that this attack didn't obviously come from nowhere. For years, members of the migrant community, and in particular people from the Islamic community, have been vilified, profiled and attacked by governments across the world. We have been told that we must be suspicious and unwelcoming of them because they may have different religious beliefs or come from different parts of the world. This attack is the result, tragically, of decades of Islamophobia and racism. And whilst we must stand against these attacks, we must also vigorously challenge and oppose the ideas that give them fuel and cover. It is disgusting beyond words, Mr. Speaker, to think that an organisation that carries out such excellent work was targeted in this way by narrow-minded bigots and racists. It's worth noting that the BMCA have in the recent past contacted the PSNI as well as other statutory organisations about instances of intimidation, and they have stated themselves that these warnings were not taken seriously enough, or worse, met with a response based upon victim blaming. Belfast and our society, Mr. Speaker, clearly has a racism problem, with racist attacks now outnumbering sectarian ones, tragically. Recent PSNI discrimination against anti-racist protesters, and a long-term failure by the executive to implement a racial equality strategy. Tackling this institutional racism must be an immediate task going forward. So today I want to offer my solidarity to everybody in the BMCA. Thank you.
Thank you. And I call Christopher Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member from West Belfast, Mr. Carroll, for bringing this issue before the House, and thank you, sir, for allowing provision for the House to discuss this matter. Sir, it has been my great privilege since 2005 to represent Donegal Pass, firstly as a member of Belfast Council, serving alongside yourself, and then more latterly as an Assembly member. And I know, sir, that the people who were responsible for this disgraceful attack do not speak for the community of Donegal Pass or the people that live there. We're very fortunate in South Belfast to be the most diverse constituency in Northern Ireland. People from every background, every religion, every nationality choose to make their home in South Belfast and contribute to the society and the general amenity of that constituency by their presence. What happened at the weekend was disgraceful, and those responsible for it should be rightly condemned on the floor of this House, and I'm sure that all members will agree with me in that regard. It is particularly galling that the people who were attacked, the building that was attacked, was being used in order to benefit the community, in order to deliver food parcels to vulnerable people who are struggling at this very difficult time in the middle of this pandemic. And therefore, I'm grateful to you for allowing us the opportunity to place on the record of this House our revulsion, our disgust, and our absolute condemnation of those responsible for this heinous criminal act. Thank you.
Thank you. And I call Pat Sheehan.
I welcome the opportunity to speak to this matter of the day this afternoon, and I want to thank Gerry Carroll for bringing it before the Assembly. I want to condemn in the strongest possible terms this arson attack on the Belfast Multicultural Association building. And I mean, what is that building? Well, first of all, it's a refuge for those strangers who come into this city, who don't know many people, who are maybe frightened and apprehensive about what faces them in a new and strange land. So it's a refuge for people like those. It's also a place which has been working for the community. As the previous speaker pointed out, they have been involved in distributing food parcels to the most vulnerable in society during this public health emergency. They also operate a clothing bank for people who are in financial difficulties and can't afford to buy clothes. And it has also been in the process of setting up education programmes for people within the community also. So it beggars belief that anyone could think anything could be achieved by attacking a building and an organisation like this. And I agree with the previous speaker also that there's no support that I can see anywhere in our community for this type of action, and it should be stamped out and stamped out now. The people who have carried out this action have nothing to offer to society. I know that the Minister for Communities, Deirdre Hargey, had a meeting with the Belfast Multicultural Association 2 days ago, and she is also helping them to get back on their feet again. And it's heartening to see the crowdfunding exercise that Gerry Carroll mentioned. The initial objective was to raise £10,000, and at the moment the fund is sitting just shy of £60,000. So that shows the true spirit of the people of Belfast who are disgusted by this type of attack. And I welcome the fact that so many people have come out and clearly and without hesitation condemned this attack, and others are helping financially to ensure that this association gets back on its feet as soon as possible.
Thank you, and I call Matthew O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you for taking this matter of the day. Mr. Speaker, we're here debating this appalling incident on Martin Luther King Day. As people will know, one of Martin Luther King's statements was that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Well, the Belfast Multicultural Association has, over the last number of years, and particularly during the pandemic, been doing an enormous amount for others. That's at its core what it is. It's an organisation dedicated to helping people from all corners of the community, particularly those who are new to our society. As others have said, including my constituency colleague, South Belfast is not just proudly diverse, it's gloriously diverse. You yourself, Mr. Speaker, will know that as someone who represented the area for many years. Diversity, tolerance, pluralism is at the core of what South Belfast is. It's fundamental to the constituency. It's why I'm so proud to represent it. And that's why people in South Belfast, and indeed across the city, have been utterly appalled by the act that took place at the Belfast Multicultural Association. It's shameful, it's shocking, and it not only doesn't represent local people in that area, it doesn't represent our city. So I'm glad today that the Assembly is taking a clear stand against this appalling attack, but we need to go further. We need to investigate the roots of hate crime in our society. We need to be serious about thinking about why these attacks are happening. Hate crime, as Gerry Carroll correctly said, now consistently outranks. There are more hate crimes in most years in Northern Ireland than there are sectarian attacks. We need to understand why that's happening, and we need a coordinated strategy to tackle it. In this past year, we've been thinking a lot about issues of racial inequality and prejudice. We can't just have those statements be debates in the Assembly. Welcome though it is that we today are standing up and making our voices heard, we need to take clear action as legislators to tackle this cancer in our society, and we need to do that consistently. I'd also like to say, as Gerry Carroll said, it is the case that the Belfast Multicultural Association have raised concerns in the past about threats, and so we will need to understand how that was handled and the circumstances around this particular attack. But for now and for today, let us stand clear and firm in utter revulsion and rejection at this attack, and united in seeking to stamp it out in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and I call Steve Aiken.
Much indeed, Mr. Speaker, and may I thank Mr. Carroll indeed for bringing this before us today. I also stand as the chairman of the All-Party Group on Ethnic Minority Communities, and along with that group, as well as the Ulster Unionist Party, we condemn wholeheartedly this attack, this racist attack on the most vulnerable in our society as well. But I would like to raise a question we have at the moment, because hate crimes legislation in Northern Ireland is not in step with the rest of the United Kingdom. And one of the things we as Assembly should be doing, we should be pushing very strongly for the legislation and the rules and the recommendations of the Macpherson report to be brought into Northern Ireland. And that is something that this community and all our communities have been calling for some considerable period of time. And I would like us in Assembly to call on the Justice Minister to action rapidly the changes that are needed to bring hate crime legislation in Northern Ireland in line with that of the rest of the United Kingdom. Because we cannot afford to allow our citizens from wherever they're from, or the most vulnerable who come to Northern Ireland because they're seeking safety, to feel as if they're being undermined and they feel terrified in their own communities. Northern Ireland needs to be a place of refuge. It needs to be a place of tolerance. It needs to be a place where we look at these people who come from the rest of the world and we welcome them within our society. Furthermore, if anybody has looked at our National Health Service and seen where many of our doctors and medical professionals are coming from, many come from these societies, and we should be reaching out to them and welcoming them with open arms. And perhaps the best way we can do that is to make sure hate crimes legislation is rapidly brought into line with the rest of it as within the United Kingdom. And thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
And thank you. And I call Kelly Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to Mr. Carroll for bringing forward this notice of motion today. I'd also like to thank everyone who spoke beforehand, because it does show in this House there is unanimous support for people in our society when they are attacked in this vicious and vile way. On behalf of the Alliance Party, I wish to raise my sadness. After the blaze at the Belfast Multicultural Association, it left the building extremely badly damaged. And it's sadness because I'm so disappointed that it's happened. More than 50 of our firefighters were needed to bring the fire at Donegal Pass under control. Investigations are, of course, ongoing to identify those who carried out this attack. And my thoughts are with the Belfast Multicultural Association. My colleague Paula Bradshaw, who would normally be speaking about this, unfortunately she's at a funeral today, has confirmed that volunteers that she has worked with have worked extremely hard to establish their premises, and they do amazing work for many sectors of the South Belfast community. In this attack, no one was hurt, but this isn't the only attack. There have been cars damaged, there have been other spates of attack that have happened around this centre and many other multicultural centres across Northern Ireland. I have unfortunately had experience of it in my own constituency, where we have people dressing up with KKK outfits or leaving pigs' heads outside the doors of some centres. It is disgusting, it is disgraceful. An attack on a centre like this is an attack on all of us. We are one society. We are working our way past a divided society. And I have to acknowledge the overwhelming support that shows that our society does not want this type of behaviour. And as others have mentioned, the funds that have been raised voluntarily from the community that's reached almost £60,000. Islamophobia, racism and hate crimes are disgusting. It is a blight not only in South Belfast but across Northern Ireland. I condemn this attack wholeheartedly, and I ask anyone who has any information about the people, if they can be called that, who carried out this attack, to go to the police and let them know information so we can get these people off our streets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and I call Claire Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Gerry, for bringing this as a matter of the day here today. And yes, the Green Party also condemn this arson attack, but more those who carried it out. But I also want to just really put on record that our community response in light of this to help BMCA after this despicable hate crime against them has really been quite phenomenal, and we should not lose sight of that, because I think that is the core of who we are as a people. This was an absolutely disgusting and seriously dangerous attack on a community association doing really important work within our community. The arson attack could have resulted in death or serious injury, and I think it's really fair to say that the people behind this attack didn't know, nor did they care if anyone was inside that building at the time. It was a savage fire, and it was done by savage people. That fire gutted an historic, beautiful building, but I really, really hope that it has not gutted or damaged the aspirations for a better world from the staff and supporters of the Cultural Association. The Cultural Association that have been putting together food parcels, for goodness sake, in recent weeks. They've been helping people through the COVID crisis, and their volunteers have shown absolute selflessness in the middle of a pandemic that has disproportionately impacted on Black and minority ethnic communities. Compare that with the reckless and disgusting behaviour of whoever was behind this attack, and I urge anyone who has any information, who's seen anything suspicious in any way at all, to contact the PSNI and have these people in front of the courts and held responsible for what they've done. The vast majority of people in South Belfast are fair-minded and peaceful, and I know that they are disgusted by this attack, but that goes right across Northern Ireland and not just within a constituency. So I look forward to helping and seeing the Cultural Association get back on its feet, continue the brilliant work, and know that they can always count on my and my party's support whenever needed. And thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, members, and that concludes this item of business. And could I thank all those members who have contributed to this particular discussion, and thank them for their very clear and resolute remarks, which I think reflect all views in this House. Next item on the order paper is a public petition. Mr. Gerry Carroll has sought leave to present the public petition in accordance with Standing Order 22. The member will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and I call Gerry Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to yourself and the Business Committee for allowing me to present this petition today. This petition calls for the fines issued on the June 6th Black Lives Matter protests to be dropped, and I want to publicly thank Mr. Rhys Lawson for organising this petition, and the almost 6,000 members of the public for signing it, and everybody who shared and promoted the petition. As the petition states, Mr. Speaker, people who attended the June the 6th protests were standing against racism and joining with millions of others across the world who were repulsed and infuriated with the murder of George Floyd in America. Disgracefully, these protesters were targeted by last-minute rules brought in by the Executive at the 11th hour, which gave the green light to the PSNI to target those who attended a protest that was widely commended for maintaining social distancing. Racism, as we have previously heard, is a horrible cancer in our communities and worryingly on the rise. The fact that such a disproportionate number of fines were issued to people who took part in events that not only were righteous and important but safe should never happen again. Our cities should be places where minorities can express their rights, can demonstrate and show their disgust at racial injustice. Never again should members of the BMCA community or any other minority communities here be frightened to take a stand for what they believe in. Whilst the PSNI distributed fines to protesters for breaking social distancing guidelines, allegedly, we haven't seen the same approach taken towards those who own care homes, who have let the virus rip, and those that have taken the lives of far too many, or employers who have put staff at risk by forcing them into work when they can obviously work from home. Indeed, the week after this protest on June 6th, we've seen a Defend the Statues protest at City Hall with no social distancing whatsoever or widespread mask wearing, yet not a single fine or legal threat was issued. This double standard approach cannot continue. It's clear with events at the weekend and the statistics over the last number of years which show racist crimes outstrip sectarian crimes, that we have a problem with racism in our society. So instead of designing legislation that criminalises anti-racist protests, the Executive needs to ensure that the laws it passes and polices do not disproportionately impact on marginalised communities and not defend police actions as proportionate as the Deputy First Minister and the Justice Minister did in this regard. And if the Executive, Mr. Speaker, has any intention and even a modicum of racial equality in our society, then it must ensure that these fines are dropped. And the Minister of Justice and the Deputy First Minister, the Executive as a whole, must do everything that they can to ensure these fines are rescinded and work to rectify the hurtful damage that was done by this approach. I commend the petition to the House. Thank you.
Thank you. Normally I would invite the member to bring his petition to the table and present it to me. However, in light of social distancing and operation, I would ask a member to remain in his place, and I will make arrangements for him to submit the petition to my office. I thank the member for bringing this petition to the attention of the Assembly, and once received I will forward the petition to the Minister of Justice and send a copy to the committee. Next item of business on the order paper, members, is a motion regarding committee membership. As with other similar motions, it will be treated as a business motion and there will be no debate. Clerk, please read the motion.
That Ms Carroll Cullen replace Mr John O'Dowd as a member of the Committee on Procedures.
Can I call Sinéad Ennis to move the motion?
I beg to move.
Thank you. The question is that the motion standing on the order paper be agreed. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Next item on the order paper is I have received a notice from the First and Deputy First Ministers that they wish to make a statement. Before I call the Ministers, I remind members that in light of social distancing being observed by parties, the Speaker's ruling that members must be in the chamber to hear a statement if they wish to ask a question has been relaxed. Members do still have to make sure their name is on the speaking list if they wish to be called, but they can do this by rising in their places as well as notifying the Business Office or Speaker's table directly. I remind members to be concise in asking their questions. I also remind members that in accordance with long-established procedure, points of order are not normally taken during the statement or the question period after. And I call the Deputy First Minister.
Can I just, before I start my statement, add my words of condemnation in terms of the previous piece of business around the Multicultural Association building at the weekend, and obviously we all condemn it in the strongest possible terms and send a very strong signal from this Executive and this Assembly that it's vital that all in society take a stand against such hatred and intolerance. In compliance with Section 52 of the 1998 Act, I wish to make the following statement on the 12th institutional meeting of the North-South Ministerial Council, which was held on the 16th of December, and also on the 25th NSMC plenary meeting, which was held on the 18th of December. The First Minister and I have agreed that I will provide this report. The 12th North-South Ministerial Council institutional meeting was held at the NSMC Joint Secretariat offices in Armagh on the 16th of December 2020. The Executive was represented by the First Minister and myself. The Irish Government was represented by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Simon Coveney TD, and the First Minister and I chaired the meeting. We discussed a number of priorities, and given its importance at this time, we focused on the impact and response to COVID-19. The Council noted that COVID-19 issues were discussed at all NSMC sectors, including the impact on that sector and how to promote economic and social recovery from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ministers welcomed the engagement and commitments that there has been to date across both jurisdictions in responding to COVID-19, particularly in health cooperation, and noted that both administrations will continue to cooperate whenever it is practical to do so to ensure the best response to the challenges posed by COVID-19. We discussed Brexit, and Ministers noted that the Council has included the implications of Brexit and areas for cooperation in each of the NSMC sectors, and that Ministers agreed that they and their officials will continue to engage to ensure cooperation is maintained following the end of the transition period. The Council also noted that senior officials from the Executive Office, the Department of the Taoiseach and the Department of Foreign Affairs will meet regularly to discuss issues arising from Brexit, and will also provide updates to both administrations and the NSMC on a regular basis. Our next priority were the New Decade New Approach commitments. The Council noted that discussions have taken place on a number of New Decade New Approach commitments with a cross-border dimension at the NSMC sector meetings and also bilaterally between ministers. A group of senior officials from both jurisdictions has been established to maintain strategic oversight and to progress delivery of the projects, focusing on connectivity and infrastructure, research and innovation, and investment in the North West and border communities. This group will meet regularly and will provide updates on its work to both administrations and to the NSMC. Ministers also noted the Shared Island Initiative and the associated Shared Island Fund of €500 million to be made available in the period up to 2025. This has been established by the Irish Government to support investment in new shared initiatives, including delivery of commitments outlined in New Decade New Approach. Updates on the various NDNA commitments with a cross-border dimension will be provided to future NSMC plenary meetings. We also discussed matters relating to North-South bodies. The Council noted that the North-South bodies continue to deliver on their remit, as outlined in the agreement of the 10th of March 1999, and that the NSMC maintains oversight of the work of the bodies. Ministers noted that the bodies have now been in existence for over 20 years and recognised that there have been changes to their operating environments during this time. It was agreed that officials should review the operating framework of the bodies to explore if they remain appropriate and bring forward recommendations if required. Ministers noted that the discussions that have taken place at NSMC sectoral meetings with the aim of ensuring that the work programmes within the various NSMC areas for cooperation remain up to date and reflect priorities of the Executive and of the Irish Government. The Council will continue its consideration of the work programme at sectoral meetings in early 2021. The Council agreed that Ministers should regularly review work programmes to ensure they reflect the priorities of both administrations. It was noted that the NSMC had previously agreed that consideration on longer-term sectoral priorities was required and that a paper on this will be brought to a future institutional meeting. The Council then approved the appointment of a number of board members to the North-South implementation bodies. The next section of the meeting dealt with corporate governance matters for a number of North-South bodies. The Council approved the following plans: the North-South Language Body Corporate Plan for 2017-19, North-South Language Body Business Plans for 2018-19 and 20, Waterways Ireland Business Plan for 20 and 21, Intertrade Ireland's Corporate Plan for 20 to 22, and Intertrade's Business Plan for 2021. All plans had been completed in accordance with agreed guidance issued by the Department of Finance and the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and had been agreed by sponsor departments and finance ministers. Ministers noted the annual reports and accounts for the North-South Language Body for the 2016 and 17 years, which had been laid before the Assembly and both houses of the Oireachtas. The Council was advised that the North-South Language Body accounts for 2018 had been certified and would be submitted to a future meeting. The field audits for the 2019 accounts had commenced in both agencies. Finally, the NSMC agreed to meet again in institutional format in May or June in 2021 as required. That concludes the report on the institutional meeting, and I will now continue with the report on the plenary meeting. The 25th plenary meeting of the North-South Ministerial Council was held by video conference on the 18th of December. The Executive was led by the First Minister and myself, and we jointly chaired the meeting. The Irish Government was led by Taoiseach Micheál Martin TD. Ministers welcomed the resumption of the NSMC sectoral meetings and noted that meetings have taken place in all NSMC sectors since the last plenary meeting in July of 2020. We noted that, having regard to COVID-19 restrictions in both jurisdictions, meetings took place via video conference and that in-person meetings will resume as soon as public health conditions permit. The Council noted that each sector had considered a wide range of issues, including COVID-19 recovery, priorities and work programmes, and the implications of Brexit, as well as various sector-specific matters. The Council was then briefed by the Chief Medical Officers, Dr Michael McBride and Dr Tony Houlihan, on the public health situation and the ongoing close cooperation in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ministers discussed the measures being implemented in the two jurisdictions to protect public health and to limit the transmission of the virus. The Council expressed its sympathy to all those who have lost loved ones as a result of the pandemic and commended those citizens in both jurisdictions who have complied with the restrictions imposed as a result of the pandemic, and also the efforts and perseverance in helping manage the outbreak. The NSMC also expressed its gratitude to all those who have contributed to the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly the frontline health and social care workers, and expressed our appreciation to the wider workforce of essential workers who have kept various services and facilities operational, even in the most challenging of circumstances. Ministers recognised the impact of the pandemic on society and on the economy in both jurisdictions, and welcomed the measures put in place by both administrations to support communities and businesses affected by the crisis and to assist economic recovery. The recent progress in the development and rollout of the vaccine was welcomed. The Council noted the NSMC Health Sector meeting on the 2nd of October to review ongoing cooperation in responding to the pandemic, that the issue of the impact and response to COVID-19 was considered in all NSMC meetings. Ministers agreed that future meetings of the Council will continue to consider how agreed collaborative approaches can contribute to the promotion of economic and social recovery in a COVID-19 context. The Council then went on to discuss the implications of Brexit. Ministers recalled at its last plenary meeting on the 31st of July, the Council recognised that both jurisdictions share a common interest in minimising disruption to trade and economic activity on the island, and noted that discussions have taken place across the various NSMC sectors on the implications of the UK withdrawal from the EU. We noted that at that time, in light of the ongoing negotiations, full clarity on the impact on cooperation in a number of areas was not yet available. The Council agreed that, irrespective of the outcome of the negotiations, engagement between the administrations on this matter should continue, both within structures of the Council and elsewhere, taking account of the evolving position. Ministers noted the role conferred upon the NSMC in relation to the submission of proposals concerning the implementation and application of the protocol to the Specialised Committee. It was agreed that officials should work to develop an appropriate mechanism for ministers to agree for referring proposals to the Specialised Committee. The plenary discussed the New Decade New Approach commitments. The Council noted that the NSMC plenary meeting held on the 31st of July outlined a way forward in aspects related to the New Decade New Approach commitments. It was also requested that the relevant ministers and their officials take forward discussions on these commitments, including where appropriate through the work of the NSMC sectors. Ministers noted that discussions on commitments have taken place at NSMC sectoral meetings and also bilaterally between ministers where the commitments are being advanced outside of the NSMC structures, and noted the commitment of both administrations to the delivery of the A5 Western Transport Corridor, and that the next steps for the project will be informed by the interim report from the public inquiry. Noted that both administrations continue to work together to progress the Ulster Canal Restoration Project and the Ulster Canal Greenway. Phase 1 of the restoration is now complete, and that Phase 2 of the restoration will commence in 2021. The design and engineering feasibility and pre-construction stage of Phase 3 will commence in 2021. Welcome the strategic approach that is being taken to the review of the rail network across both jurisdictions. Also, the engagement that has taken place around the development of terms of reference for the review, with a view to launching the tender process in the first quarter of 2021. Noted that both administrations are considering next steps to progress the Narrow Water Bridge project. Ministers will explore further how the project may be advanced, including at the next NSMC transport meeting. Noted that the Department of Transport has commenced a review into air connectivity and is engaging with stakeholders, including the Department of the Economy and the Department for Transport. The review will consider potential impacts on regional connectivity, sustainability and climate change. Welcome the work being undertaken by Leitrim County Council and Fermanagh and Omagh District Council to take forward the development of the Sligo-Enniskillen Greenway as a joint project. Noted that senior officials from the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science and the Department of the Economy will meet to discuss higher education provision in the North West region early in the new year. Invited Derry City and Strabane District Council and Donegal County Council to develop a statement of updated strategic priorities for the North West region to inform the ongoing engagement of both administrations with the North West Strategic Growth Partnership. And welcomed the recent cooperation between both administrations in relation to supporting research through Science Foundation Ireland's COVID-19 Rapid Response Call, and noted that further discussions will take place between ministers and officials in relation to cooperation in the area of research and innovation. The Council agreed that the New Decade New Approach commitments should remain on the agenda of the relevant NSMC sectors and that further updates will be provided to the Council at future NSMC plenary meetings. Finally, the Council approved a schedule of NSMC sector meetings proposed by the Joint Secretariat. It was agreed that at upcoming sectoral meetings, ministers will consider priorities and work programmes in the relevant sectoral areas. And the Council agreed that the next NSMC plenary meeting will be held in June or July of 2021. That concludes the NSMC plenary statements.
Thank you, Minister, for that. And I call Colin McGrath, the Chairperson of the Committee for the Executive Office.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for her very detailed report on the plenary and meetings, and echo the remarks that she has made about the attack on the Multicultural Association building. We must redouble our efforts to try and tackle racism within our society, and certainly I know that the committee will stand by to help in any way that we can to develop those strategies and initiatives and to do all that we can within society to try and stamp out racism. Mr Speaker, most people will accept that the those that are best placed to tackle coronavirus are those that are on islands, given the specific measures that can be put in place. Now, whilst there may have been some hesitancy at the beginning by the Executive to embrace this approach, I would like to ask about now that we have a requirement both north and south for those that land on the island of Ireland to actually have a test completed. Could I get an update from the Minister about the sharing of that information north and south so that we can do all we can both to tackle the virus and the spread of it, but also for those that would try and use the differences that we have on this island as a way to work around that requirement?
That I concur with the member and happy to work with the chair of the committee in terms of tackling sectarianism and racism and making sure that we send out a very clear signal that this is not something that we'll tolerate in society. In terms of the issue of travel, I mean, I think it's a very pertinent question to raise, particularly given the fact that across both jurisdictions we're in a very similar place in terms of the pressures on our health service, and we know that that's going to be immense over the coming weeks. And we're very grateful, and to say the least, to all our healthcare staff who are working on the front line for us at this moment. In terms of the issue of travel, my own personal view in terms of the issue of travel is that there needed to be an all-island approach to it. I think there should in fact be a two-islands approach to the issue of travel. We did have, both the First Minister and myself, raised the issue of the fact that there hasn't been sufficient sharing of data, and it's unfortunate that has not been resolved at this stage. We have raised it with the Taoiseach, we have raised it directly at NSMC meetings. We've raised it at the Executive, and I just think it's unfortunate that at this stage today this is still not something that has been agreed. Last week, you'll know that both the First Minister and myself have urged both governments to get involved for there to be a two-islands approach to the issue of travel. I think that is the way to go, because unfortunately, whenever the two governments, the two guarantors of our Good Friday Agreement, whenever they diverge, issues like this become orange and green issues, when clearly this is not an orange and green issue, this is an issue of public health. So we urge both the Taoiseach and the British Prime Minister to have that conversation, and we're happy to play our part. I'm glad to say that actually we have a meeting on Wednesday of this week with Brandon Lewis and also with Simon Coveney, and again the issue of travel is the key issue for discussion. So hopefully we can make some progress on the issue of travel, which is still an outstanding issue.
I call Trevor Clark.
Mr. Speaker, just following on from travel, Minister, you had outlined your preference would have been two islands approach, but given that our numbers doubling at a much higher rate in Southern Ireland, what would your message be to us now in relation to the movement between south of Ireland and here? And also in your statement, you talked about the COVID recovery. Given we're 12 months into COVID, and I mean, unfortunately, it's been horrific for most people in terms of deaths and obviously illness. But in terms of the COVID recovery, can you give us an indication of what that looks like as well?
My message is very clear to anyone who stay at home. That's the message across both islands. That should be the message that everybody hears. No unnecessary journeys, only go out if you must, only go out for the essential reason. So no matter where you're travelling from, people should stay at home and not travel unless it's absolutely necessary. In terms of COVID recovery, I don't have an awful lot more to say on that at this stage, apart from to say that the crisis that we're facing today in our health service is immense, and the best thing that we can do for those people that work in the health service, those people that develop COVID who may need the health service, the best thing that we all can do right now is to stay at home. On recovery, the Executive is focused very much on what comes next, and we've put together a task force that's very much about the here and now, but it's also about looking towards societal recovery, health recovery, that wider economic recovery, and we have a huge amount of work to do. This pandemic has disproportionately impacted those on lower incomes in society, disproportionately impacted on women, and these are all challenges that the Executive as a whole is going to have to face as we start to build into brighter days in the future, but it's going to be extremely challenging for everybody.
I call Pat Sheehan.
Agus buchas leis an cócéad ara as an righteous seo aniu. I thank the Deputy First Minister for the statement today. And I suppose it's clear that COVID-19 doesn't recognise or respect borders, and that speaks to the need for enhanced collaboration and greater working together. Can the Minister explain what are the practical benefits of the North-South Ministerial Council in managing our response to this public health emergency.
Thanks to the member for the question. I do welcome the fact that there has been good collaboration across the island, and I think that we haven't made enough. That's my own personal view. We haven't made enough of the fact that we do live in an island, and that there were advantages to be had for us all in terms of the spread of the virus. However, there has been significant cooperation across the island. I know that the chief medical officers, for example, meet on a really regular basis. We know that the health officials meet on a regular basis. We've had numerous amount of North-South Ministerial Council meetings where we're able to progress some of the cooperation. We had the Memorandum of Understanding, and it set out very clearly areas where we can have collaborative working. But I think that what we need to do is to see that continue into coming out at the other side of this wave, but then of course into economic recovery, societal recovery and health recovery. We have a big job of work to do, and we'll be faced with the same challenges. So I look forward to working at a North-South Ministerial Council level with ministers from across the island to see what else we can do to build on the collaborative work that's happened to date.
I call Steve Aiken.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Speaker, and may I thank the Deputy First Minister for her comments so far. North-South bodies, as laid out in the Belfast Agreement, are probably the most primary method of improving relationships across these islands, and indeed these islands. Could you state, bearing in mind the comments being made about the shared island unit, what is the relationship between the bodies that are laid out in the Belfast Agreement, which should be the things that we should be all supporting, and what seems to be an additional layer of bureaucracy that seems to be being mentioned increasingly by the Irish Government?
I'm not quite sure what the member's question is, but I can say that the issue of travel, for example, I think it hasn't been satisfactorily resolved. I've made that very clear, and I've asked the Taoiseach directly and the Taoiseach and Minister Coveney that we need to see a sharing of information, particularly when it comes to travel locator forms, and I hope to see that improved. The bodies of the North-South Ministerial Council infrastructure have done tremendous work throughout the year on all different issues, and will continue to do so. And I think one of the things that we did discuss at the meeting was just looking at their modus operandi. Is there things that can be done to improve the operational nature? And we'll certainly come back to that. But in terms of the issue of travel forms, more needs to be done from the Irish Government.
I call Stuart Dixon.
Mr Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for your statement to the House today. In paragraph 26, you say in respect of Brexit that the purpose is to minimise disruption to trade and economic activity. But as we've seen over the